Hello my dears, today's video is going to be quite an interesting one, albeit similar to the Yosamdi Sam one that she made 2 years ago because I did all of my research and mapped out my script and then watched her video last and realized that I did not need to do as much research as I did. But anyway, so before we begin, hello there, my name is Sydney, I use they, she pronouns, and I am autistic and Quaker, though I was raised in the United Church of Christ branch? I guess? I don't know how that works. Of Christianity. We're going to talk about my journey with religion a bit later in this video, but that seems like some good information to have from the start. Also, this video is not a discussion about the validity of religion or a critique of it or anything. Please don't argue with me in the comments about the existence of your God or with each other. Just don't do that. This is about personal experience of religion and how that intersects with my experience as an autistic person. There is no judgment here. Please be kind to me and also to one another. Thank you very much. Now, if you're new here, welcome. You are welcome to subscribe or simply vibe. Either way, I am very happy to have you in my little corner of the internet. Let us talk about religion. We're going to talk about some fun history stuff first, then the interaction between autism and religion, and then my own personal experience with it. And it's going to be super great. So I'm excited and I hope you are too. To begin with, I have always thought that religion and autism have been interconnected. I mean, once you learn anything about autism and then you think about the lives of monks in any religion, both now and in history, an isolated life, vows of silence, strict routines, repetitive prayer, including rocking back and forth, prayer beads, chanting, etc. Also typically being very almost overeducated, often with lots of time to delve into a specific topic of interest, and living a simple life free from the expectations of marrying and having children or holding down a job. I'm sorry, but that's autistic paradise. It just is, and you cannot deny that. But these things also make a lot of sense in their respective religious contexts as well. I mean, repetitive chanting, rocking back and forth, silence, routine, etc. These kinds of things make any person feel, on some level, calmer and more regulated and more connected to the self. That is also why these silent retreat things exist today, and probably did then too. So it's not that all early monks and nuns and hermits and other religions' versions of the similar thing, it's not that they're all autistic, but for sure some of them were. And in a weird way, that kind of brings me comfort, because of my religious trauma, which we're gonna talk about in a little bit. I've always felt kind of alienated from people who devote their entire lives to religion in the sense of becoming a nun or a monk or a priest or a rabbi or anything else in that category, but thinking of awkward autistic girls becoming nuns so that they could go to school and avoid societal norms kind of makes me happy to think about. Also, I'm not the first person to come up with this theory independently. I found at least 3 other places on the internet, and also several of my autistic friends have brought it up on their own in conversations as well. So this is a fairly commonly held belief. But anyway, that was the nerdy part, just, if only for my own enjoyment. But let me know what your theories are on that topic in the comments. I do want to know what you think. The next bit is the relationship between autism and religion in regular life. Still interesting and exciting, but in a different way, so we'll take it. Anyway, so as always, I began with an in-depth look at the scientific research to try and figure out what the number correlations and all that stuff, what those are. Because turns out there actually is a significant amount of research into this specific topic, but I soon discovered that, in fact, most of this research was set up in a very sketchy manner, with weird groupings and whatnot, so it therefore doesn't really accurately measure anything. So I kind of had to throw all of that research out the window, which is quite unfortunate because it took me a while. But I did find some articles by autistic people talking about it, so it all kind of evened out at the end of the day. Anyway, basically from what I can tell by all of this reading, in general, autistic people are either very religious or not at all, and there is no in between. Our sketchy scientific data did kind of also show this, but we're ignoring that because it's bad and it doesn't matter, so it's fine. But some aspects of religion, they can be very ideal for autistic people, and other aspects can be absolutely awful. Though I feel like that's also probably how religion works for most people, regardless of neurotype, so do with that what you will. Moving on, so the thing that makes autistic people really feel nice in a religion and really connect to it is the idea of rules and regulations. Life rarely has specific explicit directions, but religion kind of gives those to us. So that's really helpful if you need some sort of structure in your life. Also, the weekly, monthly, and yearly rituals bringing routine and comfort and something to ground yourself with is really important. Communities of faith are also ways to have social interactions where there is kind of a set social script of sorts to follow. I mean, you can talk exclusively about scripture and have that be completely okay and acceptable. I know growing up that for me, hymns were a great way to vocally stim in church by singing along because There was a lot of it, and a solid half of those things were repeated every week, and I felt one of a community by stimming with everybody else. Most religious ceremonies and practices are very structured, and that can feel very safe. Not to mention that scripture analysis is literally never ending, so if that's your special interest, you could just keep on going, like forever if you so desire. So in that sense, religion is the perfect place for autistic people. But then at the same time, for other autistic people, religion can be very alienating. Most religions are inherently social in nature, and that makes meeting for worship a lot less relaxing and a lot more stressful for many people with social anxiety. They're also not always sensory friendly. I'm looking at you, incense, or like those rock church things. And the biggest struggle that I always had was the contradictions. People who regularly pray the rosary but then get mad at me for using a fidget toy. Or people who say, love thy neighbor, and then the next sentence say something racist or homophobic. Like, for me, my confirmation in my church, that was at the exact same time that I was learning about the Crusades in school. And in my brain, that delegitimized everything I was learning at church. I mean, how can you say you want peace on earth and then also go and kill people in a war over something pointless? Like, how can these spiritual leaders be so hypocritical, and therefore why should I trust them? And I've seen discussions of religion like this with many other autistic people. We cannot accept this truth because we see people who claim to have accepted it completely contradicting themselves, and that causes us to lose some level of faith. And that's the second thing, faith, which by definition is believing in a thing without evidence. Obviously, people will argue that like, yes, but this or that is evidence of God. We're not getting into the theological discussion of that right now. We're not talking about it. At its basis, faith is believing in something without evidence. That's the definition. And in the case of religion, that's meant to be a comfort, that there's something there to look out for us. There's something to hold on to. But for very logical, fact-based people, autistic ones, that does not tend to bring comfort. That tends to make us very confused and anxious and trying to seek some solid answers that cannot be answered without, you guessed it, faith. For example, if somebody is unsure if they believe in God and want proof, and you ask for proof, and the person you ask gives you the grass outside and says, that's proof of God, he created this. Without faith, like, I'm not going to suddenly go, oh yes, God created the grass, this is proof. So for me, growing up, I never really had that faith because I had no proof other than everybody telling me the same, like, 4 things that led themselves in a circle, which to me felt kind of like a big red flag. And I never understood why everybody was pretending to believe in this stuff so much. It didn't make any sense to me. But then at the same time, I associated moral goodness with religiousness, probably because I read exclusively books about little girls from the 1800s and 1900s who said their prayers before they went to bed each night. But anyway, I felt like, because of this, if I did not believe this religion thing, I was therefore a bad person. And if I kept pretending to believe this religious thing, maybe one day I would start to believe it. And I never really did, so I just kind of hated myself. And then to tie into that, though my church was seemingly cool with the gay stuff, growing up I was always afraid that these very kind and good people would suddenly hate me and make me feel unwelcome if I were gay, and so I just kind of pulled away from the community because I expected double standards, I expected hypocrisy, I feared hypocrisy, and so I never really felt safe or welcome in a space, no matter how welcoming they tried to make it, because unfortunately, discrimination and religion often come hand in hand. And in my mind, these people are also focused on a thing that they have no proof of. They're forgetting about the things that are here on the ground that actually need to be worked on. And now I hate philosophy for the exact same reason. But anyway, so at the end of the day, for a lot of autistic people, whether it's because we're autistic or because we're more likely to be queer or trans and therefore discriminated against in most church settings, unfortunately, I don't know which one of those it is, but we often don't feel safe in worship spaces to begin with. So why would we believe the things that these people are saying? It's also important to acknowledge that autistic people are, in general, susceptible to manipulation. Yes, we are very critical thinkers and we look at every aspect of a situation, but sometimes we get so caught up in the details and stuck in the kind of gray areas that we will agree with both sides of a situation, making our opinions seem kind of wishy-washy sometimes. And that means that if we are isolated from other people and stuck in that gray area, we can easily be swept up into cults or other forms of manipulation. Think bully sidekick kind of thing. And honestly, I think a lot of us intrinsically know this about ourselves and avoid religion because we are afraid of this happening. Or maybe not. I don't know, but overall the intersections and emotions between autism and religion are just as varied as those between anything else and religion, really. I mean, it's for sure an interesting discussion, but this is a great example of how autistic people are very much not a monolith. When it comes to my experience with religion, I grew up wanting, as I said earlier, very badly to be a part of mine and to believe everything truly, but I saw too many contradictions and I felt too confused and uncomfortable in that religious space that I wasn't able to find any of the comfort and guidance religion is supposed to bring to a person. So I kind of went as long as I had to, and then when I got halfway through high school and I was like, oh, I'm kind of an adult now, I slowly extricated myself the best I possibly could. But I always felt really bad about myself because in my head, if being a good person meant being a religious person, but I was a failed religious person no matter how hard I tried, I therefore had to be a bad person, right? That's the only thing that makes sense. Religious trauma is quite the time. But anyway, so I happened to go to a Quaker high school at the time, and it was a really great place to be. And we had Quaker studies, which I think due to snow days, we only had like 2 or 3 meetings of that class, if even. But I ended up falling in love with the religion and kind of loosely identified as Quaker for a couple of years. And then when I got really sick, right around the pandemic time, and I had to like face my own mortality a handful of times, I realized that maybe some religious guidance would help because I kind of felt like my existence was like soup. So I went online and I ordered the Quaker Book of Faith and Practice. I began to work my way through the text and analyze it and take notes. It's very similar to my own belief system naturally, so it kind of just helped me to put words to what I was already feeling and then turn that into action and how I interact with other people. So I finally got that comfort and guidance that I'd always sought from religion. Do I still have religious trauma? Absolutely I do, but that does not mean that I don't feel very much at home in the new religion I've chosen for myself at the same time. Those two things can happen concurrently. Now, I'm not going to go much more into my experience with Quakerism in this video because I'm going to make a separate video about that in the coming weeks. I'm really excited about it. In the meantime, Jessica Kellgren Fozard has a really great playlist of stuff about the religion, which I will link in the description for you. I will also link the Yosemite Sam religion video below, though like we have very similar points of view on this topic. And yeah, that's today's video. It ended up being shorter than expected, but Editing Sydney is going to thank me later for it. Thank you. I would love to hear about your experiences with religion in the comments, though again, I do ask that you be kind and respectful of one another, which I know that you can and will definitely do. And as always, thank you for listening, thank you for learning. Remember, it is never too late to start over, and I look forward to seeing you, my dear, in the next one.